Okay. We're gonna be recording for overseas. Yeah, there it is. There's the thing.
Yeah.
So you know. More like
I know we're waiting on Skylar online.
another minute.
Yes.
All right, everyone. Well, doing today.
Friday.
It is Friday. Yeah.
5 minutes of Tuesday.
This is also recording, so we can refer back to it if needed, but I'll also try my best to take notes. I want to thank Bob Link for being here today to talk a bit about the case for change. A little bit before he gets into his presentation, in 2023 there was a staff climate survey report in which materials were made available ahead of the meeting for everyone to look at. And I did charge Senator LaFelicia and Senator Tang to analyze the data, turn that into presentation, which they did. I want to thank them for that, and they further condensed it to a brief, about 5-minute overview, few slides. We're going to begin with that in order to help Bob address these areas throughout his presentation next. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Senator LaFelicia to talk about the overview of the campus climate report, and thank you again, Senator LaFelicia, for you and Senator Tang for going through that data.
Thank you, President Wu, and this is the once and possibly a generation opportunity for our university to really become a tier 1 school across the board.
Actually, right.
Implement what and
Yeah, I understand.
But I want to give a quick overview of what we did, and I need to thank my Senate colleague, Lee Chang, for double teaming with me and doing support job together. Teamwork is how this is going to get done. And anything that's worth doing in this life is hard to do. It takes a lot of time, and there are no quick fixes. But if you can implement what's in here, I can promise you, you'll have a world-class place to work. Go forward. Without further ado, I would call your attention to slide number 1, general impression. There. As you can see, we had 512 employees that participated, and we have 1,396 classified school staff as of when survey was done in April. And one of the best things about this, even though it was a small survey compared to the number of classified staff, the numbers, the pool is big enough that we can see the trends that it's demonstrating here. And I'd like to point out with the campus operations, a lot of data with that indicates that campus operations is so busy that a lot of them didn't fill out the survey, and that's what accounts for that. They're so busy in what they do. But the overall trends, you can see that many things come up over and over. If we can go to slide 3. And these are highlighted so you can really see quickly what the patterns of behavior are. Salary, 54.2%, along with rewards and recognition, 41% believe that this is a critical issue. And then with work culture, opportunities for promotion, 43.6% feel that we need a better career ladder for promotion. And transparent communication, supervisor, employee, and employees present. And then diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've included that because we're almost 1/4 of our staff feel that that is still a very important issue. Between 18 and 20%, so that's almost 1/4. And then the most striking pattern was revealed through mental health and well-being. As you can see, it's really a mixed bag. 37.1% say that the unit is positive, and it's almost equal that they say it's negative. And I want to point out student affairs, because 55.8% of staff in student affairs indicate that their unit is negatively impacted in their work environment. That's really, really high. These are points to consider. Can we go to the next slide? I picked out 3 of the metrics, of all the metrics that were analyzed, because they're almost 1/3. Bullying, 29.8% feel that they are with bias. 29.8% feel that bullying is, or bias is a problem. And then 12.6% feel that at some point in time they've been bullied in their job. And then 8.3%. So these are points to consider. They're not extremely high, but they're high enough that you should take note. We go to the next slide, please. And these are our recommendations that Senator Tang and I feel are of concern. Addressing salary concerns, 52.4% are concerned with our salary. Improving communication, over 1/3 of our survey respondents feel that it's an area that needs to be improved. And strengthening recognition and rewards, 41%. feel that's a worthwhile pursuit to improve. And promotion opportunities, career ladder, where we know so that can progress. And to bolster diversity and communication. Again, that's almost 20% of our total, so it's worthy of consideration. And a sense of belonging with our staff. That's 1/4 of our staff feel that they don't belong, or they'd like to belong in a more meaningful way. Discriminatory attitudes and misconduct, that's almost 1/3. That has a wide range of misconduct behaviors. And then the last one, mental health. I want to point out again that 55.8% of student affairs feel that's a very valid concern. And we can go to the next slide.
I believe that was the last of the slides for today for the overview.
Morning Q&A. And I'll also point out we have 15 total slides, so if you want to go for a deep dive later, they're there.
I just wanted to point out that student affairs also had a higher percentage completing the survey than the percentage that they represent on campus. So they really wanted to have differences, which is interesting.
Thank you very much, Senator Felicia, for that. Before I turn over to Bob, are there any questions regarding the climate survey? Yes.
We used to be student affairs,
That'd be
Operations, campus operations.
You'd be under, budget finance.
Any other questions?
Or under this. Oh, under, yeah, they've been under, you've been under.
Any other questions before? Okay, so I'm gonna turn over to Bob now to go through his case for change presentation. I just asked, kind of like we do in staff senate. If you do have a question, please let Bob finish whatever piece he's saying. Raise your hand, I'll call on you. That just to go through the flow of the meeting a bit more efficiently, so we're not talking over each other, and so that Bob has the time he needs to finish whatever area he's talking about. So without further ado, Bob is the right.
Get this first. So with that said, though, I want this to be a conversation. Many of you have seen the case for change, the slides, you've been out on it already, all those type of things. So I want to be able to make sure that we can utilize this time appropriately for questions, answers, insights that you have, concerns that we need to be able to take into account as we kind of work through this. It goes very nicely in regards to what we just talked about. How do we create unifiers? How do we create efficiency across? As we walk through these slides, the first thing I'll start off with is one of the questions that we hear a lot, or not a question, university is understaffed. And I would disagree with that. So from all of the information that is provided here, it's not a matter that we're understaffed, we're inefficient staffed. And so this kind of gets to the point of how do we efficiently staff our areas that will allow individuals for a career trajectory to be able to get those promotional opportunities. So there's not a smorgasbord of different tasks that need to be applied, and I hope that you're keeping up with 100% of it, as opposed to that we can focus on the discipline, have a career trajectory to be able to match. So that's kind of just a place to be able to start that standpoint. When we get into today's challenges, these are nothing that you guys would not disagree with, but I would be open to more conversations in regards to it. There's three main core challenges that we're looking to be able to address with that. That's people, policies, and processes, as well as our technology and our systems. So just to be able to highlight just a couple of each of those, if you will. So people, fragmented roles and responsibilities, and limited career path. That's what we're really looking at. Slides that we're looking at, just so that everyone knows, this is on the resources main website. If you go on the bottom, there's 4 main circles there that you can select the organization and compensation. For you and anybody else. The processes and policies, standardization is not broadly used, and there's different operating models across different colleges and units, and therefore then we get some of the inefficiencies in some areas. And then our technologies and systems, we continue to be able to optimize Wi-Fi, and we will. It is a quarterly release, so things change on a quarterly basis. We've got some wonderful decentralized human resources, or DHRs, across campus, and they'll tell me, even from that standpoint, that things change so much I can't keep up with it, my responsibilities and those type of things. So we hear it as well as we're being overloaded. We can't attend to the knowledge that's necessary to be able to do our jobs efficiently and effectively. And so then how do we really pare it down? Going on to the next slide. This is the main meat and potatoes of it, if you will. Why change? We look on the right side for that fragmented, that is an office associate. So we went through a survey that we had an amazing response rate to be able to say, how are people spending their time? This is an example of an office associate that, or office associates. As you can see, they all spend their time differently. That's everything from services, finance, general administration, other reporting time, communications and marketing, research, IT, resources, services, training, development, so on and so forth. So this goes, that's more what I was talking about in regards to how do we really get our work, right? So if I am that smiling face at markets, and I need to be able to do our transactions, then I need to be able to work on the budget and all, and we have all these interruptions. We're not getting to where we need to. And therefore, we're really not focusing on the issue of that unit for college to be able to move forward. When we look at all of the information that comes out of the administrative activity survey, kind of moving to the left side of the screen now. We look at finance specifically, there were 277 of the respondents that do some percentage of their time in finance. Self-reported again, right? There's 277 individuals do some percentage, like 5%, 50%, 90%, whatever it may be. From that standpoint, if we take all that FTE, we'll sweep it up into people, there's 94 people worth of time is being spent by those 200. Sure, yep, so.
Out of that, 277.
Out of the 277, there are 94 full-time equivalent individuals. 93.4, but I'm not splitting that.
What was the criteria for people?
Yep, it was off of job titles. Yep, so we worked with Deloitte to be able to look at those. So the one thing I want to kind of step back, when we look at those individuals, we'll kind of go through the three different ways in which that, so this isn't just a single solution. There are three different ways that we'll look at being able to express the needs of campus. And so from that standpoint, there's a the majority of campuses and colleges to any of this work. That makes sense. We will continue to work on career ladders and all those type of things to be able to work alongside of it. But when we really look at what we'll call shared services or business partners within the universities, they really fall within three main categories, which would be human resources, finance, budget, finance, and use. So when I sit down with a dean or a unit head with their org chart, right? So I start with their full org chart and I pull all the faculty out, I pull all of those individuals that don't have staff underneath them. So, a huge org chart comes down to a very small population of individuals that talk about it. Have these, some of these also. Any questions on this? Because this is kind of the fascinating part to me. Get that data from individuals. So again, we look at human resources, 190 people or 24 full-time equivalents that are working from doing parts of human resources. Where I go from a narrative there is that we have individuals that may mean that they're not hiring every year, or they're hiring one or two people every year. And so for us to be the university collectively to believe that they're going to, well, I did this last January, I should remember how to be able to do this, right? And so
Not.
yeah, right. And so from that standpoint of how do we have this individual's position, right? So what happens right now is our recruiters in human resources, that is, we're happy to be able to do that. But what that means is we're just another tangential portion of the college or the unit to be able to do that. Again, we're happy to be able to do that, but it limits us to be true recruiters, to be able to make sure that pipeline's open, be able to make sure we're advertising appropriately, we're getting to the people that we want to be able to get to, we're making sure that we've got, we go through the information, we've got diversity in hiring, all types of diversity, that we've got the best candidate appropriate for individuals to be able. So I don't believe from a human resources perspective, we're providing everything can or should, just because we are kind of stuck in some of those transactions right now. This will put that transactional thought back out into units, colleges, which puts it closer to home, but we still have that support for people, exceptions such that they may not see it.
Bob, I did have one question, and in case I missed it, my apologies. When did this administrative activities survey go out initially?
I have to look at it. So it would have been, so when Deloitte was here, so it would have been
We all did this, didn't we?
Yeah, I remember doing it.
yeah. So it would have been, yeah. Sometimes I feel like I've been here forever, but I haven't even been here for a year and a half.
Don't worry, you're about
There. Thanks.
it was like a great call to work early. It was around Christmas.
November 22 maybe.
That sounds-
I think it was October.
That's my own curiosity.
Going briefly on to the next slide. Some of the pain points that employees experience, and this is nothing new, I hear it from many of you and I feel it as well, but hiring, what our job duties are, the job duties specifically in fragmented roles and responsibilities, desire for higher pay, stuff that we've heard from the survey, advancement opportunities, transitions through the university to different colleges, different units, those type of things, as well as vacancies. Backups, how do we continue with the work and such, and this kind of helps us kind of work through that, but how do we have standardized roles and responsibilities that are honed and understood, like that we understand our units for colleges, but if we need to plug and play and say, hey, I can help you with that while that individual's away or someone's transitioning or something to that extent. Works are the same, expectations are the same, service level agreements with the units, colleges are the same. Please interrupt me as we kind of go through this, but I don't want to just, yes, just want to have a great conversation. The future state, I think this is something that I would enjoy your thoughts on. I think this really does a nice job of getting to what we're looking for, but roles and responsibilities should be standardized, workload should be evenly distributed, reporting structures should be logical and promote accountability, career paths should be clear and defined, and compensation should reflect and understand. I'm going to caveat that last one. So we've got a whole separate project that we're working on compensation. I'm happy to be able to go through or answer questions into that as we go through it, but just so that we know that this case for change, I'm really looking at the org side of it.
I was just curious, like when you say understanding of the market, where are you looking when referring to the market?
Okay. So it all depends on the job. So we've got a couple of areas. Well, part of this is working with employees specifically. They use market pay as a platform. From that, you can bring in any market data that we like. So we have a couple that we utilize. Since they were going to be using it anyways, we purchased it as the 3-year piece. It is pretty, it's game changing in regards to matrix that hasn't changed since 2018, I think. To be able to make sure that we can save that. So we have that. On top of that, then it also we have JD Expert, which is part of that, which gets into job descriptions, which also allows us to be able to line these career paths up. So we can say, hey, if you're in human behavior, you're an HR1 to get to an HR2, you need X time and see and master of these, expectations or items. To get to an HR3, you need to be able to do this in HR4. So it allows us to be able to do that. But to answer your question specifically, a lot of what we pull at the end is higher education data. And we look at it and parse it in many ways. So CUPA, HR, College and University Professional Association for Human Resources is the gold standard, if you will, for higher education. And so from that standpoint, then we pull that in, we pull it by geographic area, we can pull it in by number of students, we can pull it in by budget, we can pull it in by number of faculty and number of staff. But we compare, we have about 3 different CUPA numbers in just to be able to calibrate when we see some of them, or when we don't, when there's no compensation available for one of those. But we created a peer, a voice peer group. That is our primary, what we look at. And then when we go outside of that, then faculty don't play into this specifically, but that we use OSU data to be able to do that. And then we look at some of our technical pieces as well as like
So the CUPA, is that,
CUPA,
does that also account for cost of living and inflation factors as well as the job market?
So CUPA does an annual survey that we participate in that standpoint, and we have access to that data. There are, so it is it should be coming out it's this last year, so it's a year behind. From that standpoint, then we do not in market pay currently, but we can age it forward and so on and so forth. So it is taking that point in time, if you will. It doesn't take into like a cost of living. It sharp increase, and now that if it's starting to decrease, just because it fluctuates on such a rate.
Thank you for answering that.
Yeah.
I think I understand where people have been going with their questionings. When talking about the market rates and the scores, you're saying that we are specifically, University of Wyoming staff, University of Wyoming is specifically being, our salaries are specifically being compared to our counterparts in other colleges, other universities within the same geographical area as ourselves, like Idaho, Colorado, Kansas. Is that,
So we
is that
have that ability.
is that where the scores come from? I think that's what people are asking is, who exactly are we being compared to in order to know what that market rate is?
So
Where's that market rate? I think there's confusion on a staff level as to where that's coming from.
that makes sense.
Can you simplify that?
Yeah, so we have what we created is this Deloitte. And so that is our peer and aspirant schools. So we sit there and say, we want to be an R1 institution. We look like who we need. We also look at Mountain West and so forth from an academic perspective or from an athletic perspective and such. So I have to pull up a different report, but we do outline those specific schools that we use for the Deloitte peer group. With that said, we also use all institution, which is every institution that participates in, as well as we use as well. And so we look at all three. We're really using the Deloitte, but if the other ones are completely out of whack, like if we say, oh, this is way under, we need to be able to look at them. We actually we'll work that up to be able to do that.
And just to follow that up, are you considering, so that data that you're looking at in the market, it's 1 year behind. Are you considering feedback from your current employees, like, hey, I'm having trouble meeting rent, paying food, like, what can the university do? Like, are you considering the feedback from us, the staff, as well in that kind of analysis?
So that analysis, looking at market pay, is purely data driven, not taking into the.
Right, I'm asking if you guys are taking in that as alongside that, kind of comparing.
So we are, just because it's able to do, so we're doing, but we look at the comp spend, let's just real quick. We have, let me put it this way, I can't give you the exact number for us. One of my counterparts out east, they had 750 jobs on campus. They've been able to tailor that down to 200. And that's, so we look at our class comp as such. Their real responsibility is not creating new jobs, it's to be able to make sure that we have the structure, and then we're able to make sure that people, go with those goals and expectations. So, and to be able to have that career ladder. So what we may use as a working title would be different than that HR 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So we're really trying to be able to limit that. With that said, though, it is very difficult to be able to sit there and say, okay, here's the scientific side of the comp side of it, and then here, to be able to add that finesse in for that many positions. But as we continue to be able to hone it down, where a university the size should be, we'd be able to take in some input from that, but realistically, we need to be able to try to brush a larger, stroke in regards to what is Laramie, cost of living instance. So that is not in your group.
Gotcha.
Another point of clarification, I believe, what you're telling us is there are two sides to this whole conversation. One is what we're going over, what you're showing us today and what you're telling us today, which is the restructuring of the organization and of the standardized roles. And the second portion of that is classification and compensation, which you'll bring up, and we'll have a second conversation on another day to show how that compensation ties into the conversation. Is that today's goal is to talk about this first portion? Is that
We go anywhere you guys want. I really want this to be a good conversation. So on the page, we've got the outside information as well. Realistically, I guess I'll go maybe kind of close that. Is that we had both of these projects going at once. We had the opportunity from the legislative knowledge class to be able to extend those. And so therefore we took a very intense project and we completed it in about 3 months to be able to sit there and say, how do we leverage the dollars we have so that we don't have creep in all these other jobs, and some of them aren't paid well and such, that paid under what we would say is market. So from that standpoint, we used a lot of that to be able to say we need to be able to do it. So is $15 an hour an appropriate rate? You know, we will continue to be able to work through that side of things. But so what the innuendo that we're getting from campus is, I don't even have to hire above that. Like, I don't need to get to midpoint, which is a culture change anymore, because that's market. Wouldn't be at market. People need to be able to prove that they do the job, you know. But we have a lot of colleges that will say, I see to be able to bring in that minimum right now, that was higher than what our midpoint was before. So the soft launch of that matrix is a huge across campus from that standpoint. And now we're going through to be able to put all those pay policies together, make sure we've got families and functions that we can kind of put together to be able to make sure that we've got the full classification and compensation system in place that has. That's the not attractive stuff that like you guys don't get to see on this side, but they're hard at work.
My question is more along the first one, the goals.
Yeah.
So are we looking at the possibility of title changes? Because like right now, an office associate is an office associate, but doesn't really, the general description doesn't fit what they all do. A custodian is a custodian. But our job is a lot different than operations job.
So yes, so I'm gonna kind of use this as our segue into this, but realistically, what we're looking at is right from that standpoint is how do we have a custodian 1 through 6, for example, and depending on which way is that operations may have a custodian 1, but you guys may start at a custodian 2, and then how do we work that ladder to be able to make sure that we can provide a service. But like I look at students, especially when we get into like the residential side, they're extensions, right, of those students that they see on a regular basis. And so, and I've talked on campus in regards to this too, but how do we provide educational opportunities to be able to be first responders in regards to mental health and so on and so forth, to be able to get people like, so what a career ladder may be different than operations, if you will. They're like, okay, if you take X, Y, and Z, and that maybe there's time and seed as well, that then you have the opportunity to be able to go from a custodian 2 to a custodian 4, right? In those type of things, and that's where that's where we need to be able to get to with these ladders, and to be able to provide those appropriate trainings, education, and such to be able to say, like, you're not a custodian. You help these students get through the university, and and you may make their spaces look amazing while they're doing it, but you're really there to be able, I've heard amazing stories here and at my other institution in regards to the impact there, and that's what we need to be able to reward, acknowledge, and to be able to make sure that people have the background to be able to execute that as well.
In this next year, Bob, you will take this next segment and customize job ladders each day.
So let me pause on that one, but I can get to that. So there are some ladders that we are working on and some that we will have to work on. And there are some that once we kind of get to that launch point, we'll continue to work on. So not all of them are kind of built in. It's a big lift and a small team to be able to do it. So we will get through that. But realistically, if we look at start date, right? Start date, we say hey, here's where we are. Now we have the opportunity to start building those career ladders because everybody's at one point or another, and then we'd be able to.
Yeah, MSI.
Is it, a moment ago, you made a statement about bringing us to like what we should be. Is it the opinion, not necessarily, that there are some divisions that are possibly overstaffed and with restructuring building?
So we're one of the pieces that this kind of starts with that we kind of glossed over real quick is this is not a cost cutting. This is not a reduction in headcount in any way, shape, or form. As we work through that, may we find efficiencies that if we have attrition, we say, we don't need to fill this, or we can fill it in a different way. Yes. Are we gonna find efficiencies in regards to, as we kind of walk through this next slide here, because this is kind of the meat, this is the second part of the meat and potatoes in regards to where the actual structure is going. That we say, okay, if we take this shared service model and focus on human resources, finance, research. So therefore, we're pulling that out of some people's jobs, that they have more ability to focus on mission for that unit or the college. Maybe we have more individuals that can focus on that.
That's reallocation.
Right.
Yes, I agree.
Just one little thought,
Please.
use custodians as an example. Why do we lump them all as one? Because their duties, the duties are the same, but most custodians on the academic side, on the side of campus. Why don't we have, why can't it be a title of custodial services, whatever, something that's tied to, you know, residence life thing? Rather than just custodial services blanket across campus. That side of campus has always been a little bit different anyway, and funding is different. Why couldn't the titles just be different? Maybe different. Still using the word custodial because there's some similarities, but rather than just blanket custodial numbers. I don't know.
Appreciate it. I mean, there's a lot of different things. There's working titles. Like when we get into this 1 through 6, if you will, we may be able to do that. The working title could be whatever we may want it. I don't know that compensation is different. I think they do different pieces, but the 40 hours are, you know, filled. So we'd have to work through that as well.
I just know, I used to be in residence life. And it was, I think we do different than all of things with bed bugs and everything.
Sure.
Talk about
Yeah,
it, so. It seems. I mean, all the different, it's different. It's different. You're cleaning, maintaining all of it. It is a lot of differences.
So I know the last part is a lot of campus that about ladder to allow promotion from campus, or are we still gonna have basically the same amount of levels of jobs with the same amount of people in each job area?
So what the last presentation was one that I did.
The climate.
I believe.
Yeah.
Back to advancement.
Yes.
So, the way that it is being looked at right now, we've got 2 different ways that we can look at career ladders, right? One is that a step has to be available for you to be able to take. So if you met time and seat and mastery of task, you know, that then you, let's say, well, you're an HR1 and you want to move to an is there an HR2 available? That's one option. The other one is I've met mastery of my task and my time and seat and I automatically. So those are the 2 distinctions. We're working through that right now. Budget and finance is of the opinion of we should be able to just move them. You know, and therefore then that is a huge change in regards to where we are right now. So that hasn't been solidified, but that would be the ideal. Because that has always been the big question we have, is how do we budget for this as we're working through to be able to make sure that we can do it. Because otherwise, if like if I haven't budgeted for that next step for a person for the year, is it even feasible? So yes, that would be the, and then, I mean, realistically, this does get into is, this is an HR, right? So we need to be able to sit down and say, hey, what are those 8 differences between the disability and individuals, and what are those patterns? What is that time that they need to be able to serve, to be able to show those masters tasks and so on?
My question is, with regards to the budget and the finance thing, and knowing, one way to poke a bear is to mess with his wallet. And so my question for you is that during this is, if somebody is moved to a HR1 or something, and that amount that is designated for that salary amount, will our salaries change in this realm? Like
Yeah.
either, it could either go up or it could go down. My question is, or will we at least be grandfathered in at our current salary?
Yeah, so that becomes a legal question, right? So equity, all of those type of things. So there is no intention that it would impact individuals, but I'm gonna pause and keep me honest here. I'm gonna go through this slide real quick and I want to be able to come back, okay?
Okay.
Because there's 3 different pieces that we're looking at here. So this is the new operating model, right? It's not one, it is all 3. Okay, so I'm gonna start in the middle because I think this is the easiest, is that there is no change. But it's a matter of communities of practice. So we have things from advising, we've got career counseling, we've got academic affairs, we've got communications department, we've got individuals, communications marketing, and some of the colleges and units, and so on and so forth. How do we create a community of practice? Some of these already exist. And so therefore, how do we gain more traction, make sure the rest of the campus is engaged in it? So for example, from academic advisors, how do we pull all of those individuals embedded in colleges, ACES offices that would not be specifically within the college, and make sure that everyone has the same base level of delivery to our students and staff to be able to make sure they're working appropriately. And then from that standpoint is when we go into they can take the sky's the limit, and we make sure that we're providing the space for all services. What this allows is for individuals to be able to come in, debate, best practices, provide best practices, share what has worked for them to be able to see how that. It's really being able to take that the community, the university, if you will, the individuals that are occupying the spaces, and doing X, and it's not working. What are you doing, and how is that working? As well as then this could potentially lead to career paths as well. So, and again, this I'm just kind of grabbing at things. We may say ACES office is graduate, and then you may be promoted into a college or a university, or vice versa, or however that may work. So therefore, then we can have career structure. That's community practice that can be on all kinds. That's advising, like we're just talking about, that is enrollment management. That standpoint. What else? Our recruiting, so on and so forth. So just to be able to make sure that everyone has access to the same information, and to be able to make informed decisions, as well as to be able to create that underlying group to be able to make sure that they. Questions on that portion of it?
On the slide where it's reimagined.
Yep, we'll get to that. Yep, we can jump there now. Well, actually, let me go back to the shared service, because that kind of takes part. So what we're looking at is, when we look at the distribution model that we have on that office associate, we'd be looking to be able to say, like, okay, how do we pull all the human resources, all the finance, and the research pieces out of what we would call that distributed model that we would have seen. So from that standpoint, then we would come up with shared service business partners, if you will, for the colleges and units in regards to human resources finance. We'll go back to the human resources side of things. From that standpoint, that individual is hiring on a regular basis, creating directs, being able to take those transactional items off of those people that are in that journal admin or the distributed model. I call that the mission focused side of things. So they don't have to worry about that portion of it. They have the opportunity to disguise it with narrative, but You know, that human resources individual could be an ex officio on a search committee when they're managing the matrix, so that faculty, staff and such aren't worried about that portion of it, to be able to make sure that our speed to hire is there. And all the checks and balances are there. They can work with from a diversity standpoint in regards to some of our equity advisors that Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is working to be able to make sure that they can call bias and be able to make sure that we've got equitable hiring. I look at this one in my narrative, if you will, I think we can all kind of pull pieces from this. Right now, we have individuals that show up on campus, and it's a matter of like, here's your office, the bathroom's there, you've got a day and a half of training to be able to do. Hopefully I'll see you on day 2, right? And then you'll have access to be able to do stuff and whatnot. What we really need to be able to do is we need to be able to move away. I'm not saying that that's not across campus, but that's what we really need to be able to get to is how is this HR business partner sitting on the front steps waiting for you on day 1, walks you to your desk, gets you all situated, shows you where the bathroom is, has you do your W-4 and your direct deposit without having to do other things first. So therefore, it's kind of a matter of, I haven't had to sit through 40 minutes worth of training already just to be able to make sure I'm going to get paid. Hey, like within the first 5 minutes, my paycheck's already going to hit my bank account when it's ready, right? And then from that same point to be able to say like, now I would like you to sit down and do this 15 minutes worth of financial basic access training while I take your information for your I-9 and I'm going to go process it right now, right here in the building. And so one of our compliance issues is I-9s. We're actually getting quite good at it now, that we only have 1 or so that outstanding. But the issue is that a lot of times it's a student that doesn't even know that they were hired or the start date, and it's all in I-9s are all based on the start date. So like we look at items that aren't being completed. So I call it standardized. So before payroll, ideally, but after payroll, for sure, I can tell you it's not happening, but our DHR is going in to be able to say, who didn't get paid? Should they still be on the books or should they be terminated? Is it just a matter of like, if they have had no hours this time, they're not going to get paid, or hey, we need to shut this down because this student has graduated this, whatever it may be, which then leaves exposure points or access to some of them, access to the systems and so on and so forth. So again, there's a lot of different pieces when you start adding those up. OPTs, occupational practical training. Students, if they're no longer working, we're supposed to, well, the supervisor has 10 days to be able to ISS them. That doesn't happen. So how do we really get into some of like focus just on human resources for the area and able to make sure that all these happen, see everyone's perspective, as well as to be able to make sure that keep operations.
This would help aid and streamline the onboarding process.
That would be one large portion, yes. And then obviously we have the finance side of it as well. And then we get over to the distributed model, which is really where we are now, but minus that HR and finance side, which really allows you to fill those voids with that mission driven. Right. And so what that allows is really sleeper units and colleges to be able to hopefully move forward faster. Or to be able to take on more mission cases to be able to make sure students, are getting what they need, faculty are getting what they're needing. So that is what we mean by reimagine. It's just a matter of like, okay, if these aren't there anymore, what opportunities do we have to be able to make that better?
So what you would do then is hire a full-time person to make sure that other petting is done.
In regards to like the HR and finance.
Yes.
So realistically, what we get to is we have the staff on campus now. And so it's a matter of how do we distribute those roles and responsibilities to those people that are already here.
What if they're not in your area? Other people here.
In the shared service side. So the shared service side is really that's a race. Right. So, but what it allows for is it allows that structure that we're looking for to say, like, we've got HR business partner 1, 2, 3 for that career ladder, right? And knowledge, skills, and abilities that they would build through that. But this is where it really comes into being able to have that back. So there would be multiple HR, there's multiple finance, in sense of be embedded in those areas. And from that standpoint, though, is that if we had an individual in school, so in the college district, and we needed assistance in college education, and they would be able to do the same. If they wouldn't know, to your point, they wouldn't know the players, some of the institutional pieces of it. But realistically, if I look at this and say, okay, director of business ops, for example, is a distributed model that are mission driven, so on and so forth. What we're really doing is saying is how do we get those transactional pieces, human resource, finance, and such, to those individuals that are distilling that for the unit leader and whatnot, to be able to make sure that we.
Point to this model, that person that chooses this model. They enter college. So are we doing that?
And so most of the individual location and all that does that. Their role or function on the focus. To your point.
But then they can still.
And so there may be some accreditation needs from finance. And therefore, but therefore then we may open up more mission, that is, here's pharmacy accreditation that's done here. That granted, we're taking into consideration pharmacy. It's a good point. Yep, agreed. They're same location, the same working conditions, there may be a different reporting line. But that is the main thing that I look for your feedback on, so I do appreciate that. I hadn't thought about accreditation specifically, but I like the needs as well, I had thought here. But how do we make sure that we drop in? A lot of
the way that I understood this split out to the shared services model, the distributed model with the human resources finance and separating out the general administration. Sorry. I saw it really easily when you look at like the accounting associate model, when we looked at how fragmented the accounting associates were at the very beginning. So say you have 10 accounting associates across campus, and they're all doing a little bit of human resources, they're all doing a little bit of finance. Rather than having 10 people doing a little bit of everything, you're having player 1 do more of human resources, they're doing more of finance, they're doing more of development structure. So on those majorly fragmented roles, it would take those pieces off and put them into the higher up. When you get into positions that are higher than an accounting associate, so you get up into the accounting role, I'm using finance, you get up to like the account role or the business manager role or whatever they rename everything, you would start adding those additional responsibilities onto those roles, such as your accreditation. Or maybe you've got some specialized finance report that a specific unit has to use. But you wouldn't have a general administrative staffing person that's an office associate doing those in-depth accrediting. Anyway, right? So it would already, that would already be something that's pulled out. Something a little higher level. That's the way I understood it. Am I on the right track?
Yeah, so I mean, right, so how do we define accreditation? So in my past, right, so accreditation would be, like, I would get the dean would say, hey, I need my staffing structure, and we were working through that. I know that, and that was before we put in our last system, which then I made that readily available to them for self-service. But it's, you know, so you have that human resources individual that can pull that, you have that finance individual that can pull that information, and then we may have it on the distributed model or that mission, like that they're putting the report together. And we've heard that across campus.
Sorry, Jean, have you?
To go back, just so I understand correctly, when you were speaking about finance for backers, well, embedded in colleges that was in finance, right? So like you said, this example of someone was out, maybe there's someone in the college and do some of the finance parts. Process, I'm in the finance part, right? So you need to have all of that, especially if you're in a department, there's various fundings. Not efficient because that person they would always have to check back with someone. Because let's just say, start retention. They're not gonna know those account numbers because of the activity codes, they're not gonna know the things that you should. So just a thought, has that been thought about when you think about whole model of finance people? They're so unique in each department, and the information that's there would not be efficient for someone, an accountant, in college of business, to reconcile the finances for some faculty because someone in their college is gone. They're gonna have to contact their college to find out what, and then the tracking purpose. That's done internally, that we maintain, sure where they're at with their startup, how much they're allowed, and they use it for certain things. Retention, the same thing. So grants, it's all these different things that are embedded in there, so.
And so, yeah, no, I appreciate that. So I don't have a specific answer for you. That's it. But as we pull, you know, so as we pull other portions off, you know, then we do have some areas to be able to expand that knowledge, if you will, as well as if we have that access to that budget finance, right? So that may not be a matter that you're reaching out to the college business, but you're reaching out to the manager in budget finance and saying like, okay, we've got this transaction, here's what's going on. So, but I hear what you're saying is everyone's different in regards to grants, expectations for faculty, the account insurances.
Yeah, and they wouldn't have that information, so it's efficient in the sense that it's gonna be lagged in that's content. We get it as in finance people now to sometimes funding and whatnot, even within our own faculty to say, where do you want this to come from, et cetera. So I don't see the efficiency in that part at all, because I think that's gonna track it down and make it very efficient, because.
Yeah, but so the point is, I think that we should be able to recognize as well, is we're saying that if you're minus an individual, and we need to be able to have some backup while we fill in that. So therefore, anything in there, it creates efficiency. Whereas otherwise it all gets dropped. So I hear what you're saying, and so there would be some efficiency while they're helping out during time. But at the same point is therefore, where we are right now is better we just as opposed to being able to say like, hey, let me help with this. So therefore you may sit there and say like, I need to do this portion just because I understand how it works. But these other ones are just transactions. Just make that happen for me. And so that's where I was going in regards to that there's some backup in those downtimes. Because to your point, they would not understand the area specifically unless they're working alongside each other. So we may say we have like some smaller areas like HOP and honors, and may be supported by college business because they really don't have anybody that kind of plays into what we're talking about here from a shared service perspective. So they would actually have be buttressed up even more with the shared service model because they would have individuals that would be able to do it. But therefore, then now those individuals over time, and it wouldn't happen overnight, but would understand honors in the college of business, and therefore
Yeah.
that it's.
They still have, you still have to be on top of it. You might have gotten an account string, you did it 2 weeks ago, and you got an account string, and you're like, yep, that's the funding I was supposed to use for the start. I did it 2 weeks ago. It doesn't necessarily mean that, it's like you have to check it each time.
Sure.
The other thing to the biggest point is that that's why you have the best team too, is that they step in for those vacancies. They're in that deficit mode too, to not understand. They're a little bit more efficient in a sense because they're kind of, tied to for a period of time, right? So they become part of you and they begin to learn and they can understand a little better. But if this is a campus-wide concept of that, if you do finance, you can help in other capacities where there's. Oh, I don't know that would be efficient. I'm just
Yeah.
coming from a financial.
I appreciate that. So then let's see the next step, right? So realistically, we build it correctly. Don't have the turnover.
Right.
Right, and so therefore, if we can get to that point, we have great professional opportunities and so on and so forth. And we may be filling in for an FMLA, or we may but it's not going to be. I need to go search for an employee and I've got this amount of time, so.
That's a better thing,
Yeah.
rather than thinking of vacancies,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So that, because then the people in your unit who are helping finances have multiples, right? So there's someone there to offset some of that issues, and it's not going outside where people wouldn't understand financial structure.
We've got a.
Yeah, there's a question from Senator Archer. So if I'm understanding what I'm hearing, using an example over in ROTC, where myself and my counterpart in Army are both do everything office associates who already report directly to the provost business office in a kind of community of practice thing due to the nature of the cooperative agency beast, we'd both be classified as office associate 2 or 3 or cooperative agency OA or whatever that ends up looking like in the latter ? And fall under distributed model because of the specialized knowledge skills required for the military interaction ?
Very good question. I don't know that I have the answer to that specifically for you, but it would love to be able to kind of talk more with you as time is appropriate, kind of through that, because we do have some cooperating agencies and stuff on campus that we should be able to.
Thank you, Olivia, other questions?
Yeah, this is kind of hopping back a few slides, but is there an estimate of when the new job descriptions, titles, and pay matrix are going to be released?
No, not specifically. So the pay matrix has been launched soft, but that doesn't help you because if we don't have that, so we've got job descriptions, if you will, written for the shared service business partners or HR and finance. We're working through that same one. Once we do have that at the base level, then that's when we're able to add the career ladder onto it. And then once we have those, then we're able to go to the market to be able to make sure that we're paying appropriately for that example. So we want to be able to make sure all of those steps.
Okay, are these new positions going to carry over their current classification, whether that's in classified staff or at will staff?
It all depends. It will follow the FLSA guidelines appropriately. We'll make sure for classifications for those positions.
Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, so going back to what Frankie asked about job descriptions. And you said that you're working on them. Do you think that they'll roll out before this whole program? So the people I work with want to know, are we gonna see a job description before July 1?
Yeah, so, yes, this was the beginning of the first quarter, that final vision for socialization, right? To make sure that I can't just say, hey, here's what we're gonna do, but I mean, buy-in to be able to say, this makes sense, this is, I mean, realistically, this is coming from staff, that say like, we want this. And so therefore, when I arrived here, it's a matter of, hey, we've got this opportunity to up for this market balance we are today. And so we do need buy-in from that standpoint. Realistically, there's a couple of different ways that we see in the information that Deloitte provided us from the market side of things of how others have done this. Most schools, individuals kind of fall into place, like I'm finance minded and I would like to stay in finance. I've got this HR side of things I'd like to do, or the mission driven side of things. The majority of it, that's what we need to be looking at. Is how do we influence? And so that is the question that we'll all need to be able to struggle with here in the next month or two to be able to kind of like, how do we make sure we've got all the players together? Not that we're gonna come up with that decision right then, but like, how are we gonna work together to be able to make sure that we don't miss anything and or anything? The last thing we want to be able to do is have it where people are just like, this is what I want to do, I'm not, right? That's not the intent of any way, shape, or form. We want to be able to make sure that we, hear everybody and we're taking the appropriate steps. To be able to please.
Will they have an option? Maybe I don't wanna do HR. They're gonna have that option. I think they're gonna. Different things.
Definitely, and so I'm of the same opinion, so I mean, one of your options is to fire everybody and have a repost. That doesn't build a culture, right, and so that's not what we're looking to do. So yes, we would like to have as much as possible of the even that. If everybody says, no, I wanna go work over with human resources. Amazing. We may have to work with people to be able to understand finance.
So, the shared services model says that there are service level agreements created with colleges and unions. Is that like finance then, be like fasting, or then you contract them out? Or
Service level agreements would be more from the standpoint to be able to make sure that, so we're consolidating these positions, right? So therefore, we're able to go to a college or union to say, this is the expectation that you're going to receive from these. Right, so if we're working through budgets and all of those type of things, your budgets will be available for you. If we've got the hiring side of things that they will manage your matrix, they will make, here's the timeframes associated with it. It's just to be able to add that accountability. So they kind of to be able to work through it is those individuals that were the way that it is designed currently, those individuals that would be human resources would report to a, you refer the term, but just like a business partner manager in human resources. They would actually have a direct line to human resources, be able to make sure that we can keep up with training and understanding and education and those type of things. And so since those individuals are still sitting where they're sitting, but have a solid line to that discipline and a solid line to that college or unit, we want to be able to just make sure that the accountability is there for if something's not being delivered, then from college and from my perspective, we can step in and say, we need to be able to make sure that we're working by those other individuals who will back up.
Sorry, one other, sorry about that. Use that budget. I would assume that would, budget planning process would now be just the directors of business operations. Because other people couldn't put that together.
So I would probably disagree, and so with budget plans, meaning that the transactional side of things, to be able to pull all this stuff together and all of that, to be able to do the transactional piece would be in the shared service. It would be a matter of then getting that to your director of business ops to be able to decipher, add institutional knowledge, make sure that, from that standpoint.
So they still be the ones to build the budget, put it together and enter it into the module.
So realistically, then you, in my personal opinion, and not having a lot of depth of experience in that, if that would be in your shared service, your business partner, global finance. So they're going to be So the director of business ops is the right-hand person to the dean of the unit, or division and such. These individuals are going to be working with them just as they are today, right? In regards to what transactional pieces can I do for you so that way that you can help the dean more, or to be able to decipher and present and those type of things. The big piece that we have to understand is there's a lot of change that has to happen. Meaning some like reports across colleges specifically are all different. You know, and so now we need to get conformity what's necessary, so therefore the other part too is to look at efficiency. Now the dean's reports that come to the provosts are all the same. And so therefore then we can, if they can be used to be able to sit there and say, oh, okay, well, why don't we, you know, there's more better decision. So there's a lot of support that goes on behind the side in regards to systems, access, and so on and so forth. So even if you look at the budget and finance roles, being budget and finance professionals embedded in that have more access to the system, they'll have, you know, say the HR side of things, and they happen at their desk a lot easier than it is a lot for. Go to slide number 10 real quick. Kind of gets a little bit to that viewer sharing. But this is, you've got a current state, you're trying to be able to explain it really nicely if you will. But you know, and then we pull out the white piece on the bottom, and so now we get to fill it in with the mission driven side of things, which creates the efficiencies that we're looking for. I'm not gonna lie, it's a hard pill to swallow in regards to, okay, now how do we make this happen? But at the same point, it is one of those things that I think we acknowledge across campuses is that, you know, if I look at some of our geographic schools that are multiples the size of us, they have less. I'm not saying that that's something to be proud of or that that's wrong, but just meaning that we have efficiencies we can gain. And hopefully with those efficiencies, with the university and our student experience, our faculty staff experience even further as well.
So coming back to the example Nicole used earlier, you got 10 office associates, they're both doing finance and HR. Really, if you want to gain ultimate efficiency, you're going to narrow that down to where 3 of those do HR, 3 of them maybe the finance, right? So if we want ultimate efficiency, and when I think of centralizing, I think of downsizing and cutting of positions. Is there going to be positions that will be cut from this restructure?
That is not the intent in any way, shape, or form. So I think that attrition over years, we may sit there and say, so to your point is I'd go probably a little bit different and say, let's say we have, so even from that standpoint, if we have 6 individuals and we say that we need 3 for finance for that unit, and we need 2 HR professionals for that unit, that means we've got 1 extra person that can be 100% mission driven. So how do we retask that person to be able to provide that? Or it means that, okay, we've built efficiency here. We've got this individual that's a finance individual that we can put over into this new area that we have to create for these, you know, smaller units or the smaller colleges to be able to support. So I don't know that there's going to, it's not structured that there's a heading up. As we go through attrition though, if you're sitting there and say like, we really only need 2 finance people at one, at that point, then how do we utilize that position differently? And that's the fun part, that where we get to be able to sit there and say like, we've got this, you know, and therefore we've got the ability to be able to retask that wherever we need to. So that may sit there and say, we need more skilled trades. We have more buildings coming online. We need more custodial staff. We need, like, how do we leverage that then to be able to make sure that the whole system.
Okay, and then kind of going on to the example of these tiers. So if you have like an account 1, are their main duties going to be essentially just IDT and P cards for the whole year? Are you worried about maybe these individuals getting sick and tired of the monotony that come with maybe just doing the P cards for a whole year? Has that been taken into consideration?
So they have to be, there's 2 things, right? We need to be able to get work done, some transactions, like things. So there's a lot of individuals that you have to associate your process. And the result, but at the same point, we need to be able to start that career growth, to your point, right? So P cards may be a large part of it, but at the same point, it may be a matter of, okay, well, standard work is going to be we process P cards on Mondays and Wednesdays, whatever it may be, right? But therefore, we need to be able to make sure that we have that career development, that knowledge gain, and so forth. The big thing is that I think we're missing currently on campus is how are we engaging our employees? So from that standpoint is like, okay, we've got a high potential. You know, how are we challenging them? What trainings are we providing? I feel as though that some performance development is kind of like, oh, if you have time, or hey, we've got this really cool speaker coming on, I'd like to be able to go to. But sometimes I don't even know when that happens. So how do we provide that as well as the social aspects? Hey, we've got this search committee that's going on, where we need an individual representative who can this would be a great. So it is that diversity of thought, if you will, that's going to engage individuals. And it may not be just in finance, right? It may be a matter of how can you help out on this special project with, you know, XYZ able to assist with that. So yes, we have thought in regards to like how do we differentiate, and there is going to be some, you know, especially when we get transactional side of things, but that's where a lot of things today. And so how do we kind of put that on the list?
Just a comment, one other thing that we've got to consider is there are some people and some employees that what they really want to do is just transactional data entry. They don't want anything more. I worked with a great lady, with my best friend still to this day, not at the university, but that's all she wanted to do. She didn't want to be out in the public, she didn't want to talk to people, she wanted to come in, she wanted to do her job, get it done, and then move on at the end of the day. And she was completely happy with that. That's what she wanted. And when you're looking at a career ladder out in the private world, typically when you come in, you're starting at the bottom and you're starting with those transactional processing data entry positions. You learn that and then you build and then you go to the next level. So you may have some people that just come in and say, yeah, I can probably do this, but what I really want to do is I just want to come in, enter all my data, earn my paycheck, and all that thing. We're not everyone's as high strung as you and
I think that kind of goes back to what you said about giving people a choice,
Yeah.
or an option.
But just because you're gonna have some of those positions that are just transactional and data entry, doesn't necessarily mean there aren't people out there that may just want that.
The point of that is you have to make sure the transactional part of it is efficient. And there's things that even different departments do it differently. And so make the transactions efficient in the best way because.
And consistent.
Right, and consistent, for sure.
And under
And
that
it's
model,
not right now.
but under that model, if they're all reporting the same, under the same tier. Yeah, there are gonna be changes, they're gonna have, they're gonna have process changes, some redirection, some rewriting of processes and procedures, but it can be done.
Maybe why they're good to say.
On the other side of that, you have people that thrive on being challenged.
Yeah, like I said,
want
not everybody's
help.
high strung, so that's hard.
Yeah, and you start here and you get bored. You know it back in your hand. Now I want to go here. Now I've learned finance. Now I've learned this and this and this. So you limit people from being able to grow like that because being here just doing something. How are you going to advance into a higher level positions? Now that's how people are able to move around because we don't want to happen. Now, because of my knowledge, I want to go here so I can get a raise, a better pay. Challenge myself. How do you challenge what you're going to do?
So I would say is the latter actually is your challenge, right? So if individuals want to stay in that finance, so that finance, like, so if you go from a finance 1 to 2 to 3, then you may go into finance, right? You know, and
But if you're not giving that opportunity to stay in finance, who else is doing it? How do you grow as a person? I like to do this, I'm not given a chance. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, a lot of it gets into the training and development side of things. So I mean, I know the president's looking at an institute to be able to put in place There's a lot of manager training as well. Training that with the human resources, diversity needs put in place, well, to be able to continue. But to your point, that is. I mean, you finance money, but then one day it's like, I really like this human resources, that's something, how do I learn, understand, and then from that standpoint, so that my knowledge skills and facilities of the finance side are transferable.
You know what I don't have.
I'm gonna go.
It's okay.
Okay, I'm gonna have Jean go first, it's our hand first.
And I'm one thing that you said, and I apologize in advance,
No,
for
you're
the
good.
jump stop, you said, it's not the intent. I repeated on the word, intent. So it's not the intent to let anyone go or. At 10 and you come down the meeting only for. These excess people that you jump through. I know you probably can't answer it, maybe. Don't know, but I'm just keen on the word that you said, it's not the intent that we would get rid of. But is there any possibility that you could potentially?
No, there wouldn't be. I think unfortunately, they will have individuals that are house. But that's not the intent, that's what you guys are able to help make sure that doesn't happen. But no, I mean, I'm pulling a different slide deck here, and you guys have seen this, is how I've used certain all the institutions. But you know, like, it was very specific when we kind of looked through this. But that it, I think it was number 4 or something that I said, it was like, this is not a cost cutting exercise, this is not a reduction for us.
I know, and that has been indicated
It's
throughout, I just wanted to,
Yeah,
just,
so,
these
so,
are what
so,
maybe evolved and changed.
yeah, so it's just brass tacks, full transparency, so let's say we may not have a finance. Mission critical, and you're like, no, this is one of them. And so that is not making sense, maybe we'll find a different finance position, prosecute this, but like, but no, there's no sense.
So is there any consideration for, like, either experience or seniority in when we slot people into the ladder?
Yeah, we'll have to. Yeah, so we've got individuals that are accountants and then versus in their business. Or office associates or however you want to look at it, but so that's when we get into, and I'm just again using their terms, like a budget finance 1 through 5 or 6 or whatever it is that they would be slotted over. It also then gives us that career track.
Okay, and then can I circle on back to that salary changes, since I'm not sure that I was completely understanding if there would be salary changes.
So it all depends, as we're kind of going to be able to work through all those positions. So I don't have a great answer for you in regards to how that would work. But that is, so we'll continue to work through that, make sure that we can provide as much transparency.
Nicole, you have a question?
One of the things that was, one of the items that was brought up, I was involved in some of the groups prior to this, prior to all of this being implemented and developed. But when we build efficiencies in some of these positions, instead of having such a fragmented position, yes, you're building in efficiencies, but you're also freeing up you're freeing up time for those positions. So you may have an accountant that's been doing 7 different things, a little bit of HR, a little bit of finance, a little bit of IT, a little bit of whatnot. So now that you've taken out some of those excess items, that person still has the same amount of time to work. It's been obvious through the climate survey and through discussions on campus that professional development is very lacking on campus. So with freeing up some of that time, maybe you're not able to fill all that time with, you're not filling all that time with finance, but now you've got some extra time in your day where you could be involved in professional development. You could take that class. You could look at what steps do I need to take to go up to the next career ladder, the next rung on this career ladder, or the next step. And now I have the time and the bandwidth where I can teach this class for professional development to increase my knowledge, to become a better person, so I can get to that next step. But you can't ever get to that point where you take that professional development if you're so overwhelmed with having 14 different things that you have to get done in a day
Right.
to be able to add one more item on your list to do. But if you spread what you're doing, you take off some of that extra work, you've now got the bandwidth and the mind power. Oh, I can jump from 4 different things in a day, whereas I can't jump from 14 different things in a day. But when I only have 4 projects I have to work on, or 4 different ways to train my brain, now I can mentally keep this professional development. So by defragmenting those positions, it does increase the ability for the human mind, for people's brains to actually be able to those professional development processes. So that was one of the things that was brought up during some of the conversations I was in earlier, in earlier conversation.
And you'll also have more time to do your current job better, if you're not so fragmented.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, I'm sure we've all experienced it. We all want to produce a work, but sometimes we're like, I just need to get C work done. It needs to be out that way. Right, so therefore, how do I have that bandwidth to be able to sit there and say, I have the ability to deliver A work 100% of the time, which means that the university's in a better spot as well.
I believe you said this earlier, less of a jack of all trades and more focused on efficiency, quality. Oh, sorry for conversation.
In the ideal world, when would this all come to pass?
So the structure that we're working towards right now, and understanding that socialization is being part of that is an ideal transition point with the beginning of the school year.
July.
Yeah, it's building tracks. So there's a lot of it's being done behind the scenes right now. That's outside of things. And so right now it is. That's some work we will do because we had to put that large project in the middle of it. That works to get us back on track on the work side of that. I think that we will be to a point where we'll be able to apply one. It'll just be a matter of then we'll continue to build those career ladders as we move past that July time.
Can't split a job into the base of it. Like, what if you do have like a job that does both HR and finance, but in order to do the finance part, they need to know the HR part.
So I would have to say that most positions are like that, right? So that meaning that the budget team needs to be able to know the HR team. A perfect situation in regards to, we'll go back to that we have 6 individuals. Like 4 of them are finance and 2 are reviewers sitting in the same room. Therefore, that they're able to lean on, hey, I've got this new position. Yep, I've got the budget here. Perfect. I'm moving forward. So it'll create more need for communication, but most of those relationships are built there already as well.
It came and then it went. So go.
Where we're at in this, design.
Yep. We are, I mean, I've got a really fast, like,
That's
so-
a quick answer on that.
yeah, so we're in the design portion right now, to be able to kind of finish the
Okay.
key performance indicator, building the job description, those kind of things.
On that sheet, you have your, great job descriptions, sure, so it's functional, versus this.
Those are the ones I refer to, so they say you need resources that you need budget and finance that would manage these individuals. So there'll be a new direct report to myself, if you will, there'll be a new direct report to budget and finance to be able to make sure. So those are gonna be kind of on that career development side of things as well as professional development in regards to here's how budget and finance works. Here's how human resources works. And here's what you need to know. So those individuals are gonna be ADA, FMLA, they're gonna be recruiters, they're gonna know the basics of class comp, they're gonna know when to escalate to central to be able to assist with. But they should be able to answer most of it. We don't have that currently. I think we have individuals that do a good job. We've got other individuals that are like, you don't need to worry about that. And then that's where our time is spent in regards to, oh, well, yes, that should have been an FMLA event. And
Are at-will employees also part of this structure? Or are they considered different these or just, doesn't matter at will status then?
I got a question, given the nature, the restructure and all that, do you think it's possible later down the line that other vice presidents of their areas might be able to have like Q&A sessions with their staff, given that they have a very specific understanding? I don't know if that question makes sense.
it does. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to be able to. Part of this.
It's that one that follows. We talked for a few months. Positions, volunteering. Accountants. Is that still something that you're?
So I'd like to, where our time is right now is the buy-in portion. So we're meeting, or I'm meeting with each deans with their org chart. It was like, tell me a little bit more. We've got some very unique positions here on campus, specifically the project managers and so on and so forth. And a project manager could be anything that you guys have, all the way to some of the procurers and installs equipment, right? And so a lot of those we just needed, we're working through set this person in its play. One of the pieces that I'd really like to be able to do is say, these are the only people that are playing it, so that way we kind of put some of the worry to rest, if you will, to be able to say, okay, and then now let's bring those individuals in to be able to. I think right now is unfortunately part of it's communication and timing and such as there's a lot of questions that haven't been answered, and therefore then we've got a lot of interpretation in regards to all of it.
And if you were taking your feedback to create this new.
So completely agree. I just don't want to borrow trouble from individuals, that doesn't impact. I think they still have very valuable input, but I'd like to be able to make sure that we can layer that on as well. So to you guys as well in regards to, okay, this is what I'm hearing from my colleagues. You really do need to be able to come in. So from that standpoint, as we get the needs, I'm happy to be able to meet with you as well, or however to be able to kind of work through. I don't know that a business manager versus business manager like that. Got a bunch of diversity around the room in regards to job functions that are adding quite a bit to this conversation. My notes and thoughts as well.
I remember order if I saw hands, my apologies.
Back to at-will name.
Yeah. And so grants are completely different in regards to it. So that's one of the pieces that we're working on.
Everybody did that.
So at will is at will is University of Wyoming defines it than FLSA does, and so that's kind of why I'm stammering. So the at will is those individuals that meet the status, and there's 3 prongs to that test. All the HR side of it. So we grant funded individuals, we say that they can't be classified. I don't know. That's something we're still dealing with from that standpoint. What we're saying is they don't have property rights because they have a limit of time. That grant is no longer the so there's a definitional. So at will is not just grant individuals. I don't know that you were talking about grant individuals. You were just
No,
talking
I was talking.
exempt employees.
directors of business operations.
So directors of business ops, I can tell you are mission critical, so they've actually followed that they are a part of this. So they are the right hand person to the director of the area, and they need to be able to stay that way for mission purposes.
So does that change?
So they have some of the transactional pieces pulled out, hopefully, to be able to make sure that they can even do more for that need or need that.
Right, yes, your hand.
Yes, to kind of go back to the point that Dee and you were talking about, I've also had concerns from staff about not being transparent, just a general uneasiness feeling of this. Have you guys thought of like a campus-wide survey? Because really, this restructuring is affecting staff, that will affect everyone when you look at it from a holistic view. Is there going to be like a Q&A email, something to make stakeholders in the university feel more transparent?
We'll walk through that real quick if you don't mind. You know, what is helpful, right? So
I've heard a lot about, I'm just referred to the HR website and I've got to pull up the screen and look at it all myself, and I've got to go find it myself and look through it and explain it myself. What if there was some abbreviated versions that HR put out in a smaller module on a regular basis that didn't involve having to go to the website and look it up? I know everybody hates looking through emails, but you like give the university as a whole a part of it here. Here's a summary of stage 1. Here's a summary of stage 2.
We
Give you one more information.
We started our before well, as well. They sent out communications so that we were aware, we understood which process. It was really good because we all had communication and just on our regular.
But not all of it all at once, right?
Just little.
Yeah, right.
And send it out rather than make both like.
Yeah, we used to have that. It was very helpful. Because there was, again, that was a big area too, because we transitioned to bio, that was monumental. And a lot of negativity, but I think that Frank touched on a really good point. You have a survey, I don't know, even just in the near future, year before the change, just to kind of get the temperature of what people are feeling on campus. It might help you in your rollout.
yeah, I don't disagree with you. So I question the survey, but I'm open to it because at that point we need to be responsive to it, right? So there, and we would be, right? But so then the question really is a survey the right means? Is it a matter that we've got what communications, open sessions, whatever, you know, so I'd rather be able to give direct feedback as opposed to, okay, we can get this, the size that we send out, so we should do that anyways, and so that I know that that is a change management piece that we need to be able to up our.
Yeah, it is a survey that sound like, I'm sure what we're doing. Give that impression.
Or maybe have an HR representative go to coffee conversation like President Slidell does. Have a couple of those set up where you have an HR person and the right idea of coffee shop and here's the next one, we're gonna be here, if you want, if you have questions. I'll be here for an hour.
We don't have the time to do that. An email's good. It's regular, it's coming out, you're updating everyone, everyone's on the same page, you're getting the same information. It's not people just trying to find time to go around. And truthfully, I don't know how many people sometimes always show up to.
They're classrooms.
Okay.
What I'm hearing though is that it needs to be multifaceted. So it needs to be, you know, coffee conversation, it needs to be, right?
And as staff then we send out the announcement for, so there's something maybe we could add in there.
We did mention this, I believe, the last 2 set meetings about being available in here, so I did see your hand earlier.
It's down the road, but it is in relation to what Frankie was saying, maybe like agency or stakeholders, which does matter. There's gonna be people that, yeah, I really want to be the HR focus, but I need enough, or I know enough about finance, and they're geared toward, and it creates toxic work environments. We already know that there's 30% bias, about 13% bullying. How is that going to be addressed down the road where, oh, I'm the HR person, but I still know more about finance? There's a lot of toxicity on campus, and like and there's a lot of great things too, but how is that going to be
So first, what I'd like to say is just, I appreciate the report out too, is that people have toxic environments, they need to be able to come to employee relations. They need to be able to provide facts so that way we can actually investigate this. So the team there is pretty amazing and they do a lot of this, but a lot of times we don't get all the information to be able to actually investigate, right? So we get the, hey, I know something, I've heard of a friend that. So people need to understand that that is an avenue for them. If they do not feel comfortable there, then we need to be able to use it and leverage the inputs from that standpoint. Confidential reference, resource and such. A lot of times she'll be able to walk through with an individual and say, hey, you need to go to employee relations with that, to be able to make sure that things are addressed. So we are all responsible for the campus and the toxicity or the non-toxicity or however you want to look at that. So we are saying that, yep, we're okay with this, then people are saying that we're okay. So that's one piece. But so the other part is I hear exactly what you're saying. I don't want to borrow trouble. I want to just say that everything's gonna.
They're to a lesser degree, there's faculty, like, and they're like, this is my person, this is my, and to get them to feel like, okay, that's great. Like, this is still your person, this is also your person, you have to love people for this, and to, like, what Frankie was going back to, like, getting, like, everybody to buy in and all these things.
So the interesting part with this is, and I haven't really put thought to that, so I really appreciate your question, is they have different managers, right? So we're able to be able to pull those individuals and be able to kind of have different conversations that are happening right now. So unfortunately, and this is across all companies, organizations, but we have a big school of management meeting that one day I'm an individual contributor, and the next day I'm a manager, and we don't provide those resources to be able to educate individuals to be able to. This should be able to help with that, as well as then we have those managers that can step in that aren't necessarily in those academic units.
That was what I was going to ask for clarification on with regards to that, because under the shared model, your HR would have a ladder where they would report to different managers in your finance. So if you had somebody that said, I know I'm HR, but I know a lot about finance, well, this finance person can say, yeah, I'm gonna go talk to my boss over here, I want her.
Right. And then they're gonna talk to us saying like, they're, oh, and by the way, our service level agreement on the human resources is being met because you believe that you're doing all this finance stuff.
But that's where the shared model comes in, right?
To help correct that.
So in answer to your question of like, what do we do to make this a one of my thoughts is like a positive message campaign. So that, and or, like a required training. We know that some people don't go through those emails, or read the Nelson report or anything that we try to do, but then we do get our trainings in so that our bosses are.
Like, yes, yeah.
And notification rate. But I really think like a positive message campaign that we, not just a week before, but so that, so there's time to digest. And as a staff senate, that we can also then take comments for that. And then my question that Patty did come back to me, that'll be my last question, is what is the buy-in from other folks that you've visited with this, about the dean's directors or the provost, president, what's the buy-in?
Yeah, so provost and president, provost is on the executive team, so that body is there. The president is for as well, he has businesses in his own area, like Universe, in human resources side that I don't say old main, but like when we look at some of the functions that are in there, how do we really structure that, make sure that we have one. Teams we're working through that change management side right now. So we have met together, we are meeting with each of them now to be able to kind of say, this is really how it works. To be able to make sure that they kind of understand what that full depth and breadth is. And then we'll circle back around here. We've got our next meeting on a whole. So we're working through it, 'cause to your point is, we need to be able to have everybody, on board. So, not an easy task, but we're working through it. Of course.
Okay, I just want to be mindful of the time, Zach Foxbrook, it is 2:45 PM, so if you can get any other like areas we haven't covered regarding this presentation, that you think would be beneficial for us to hear.
No, I mean, realistically, my goal for today was conversation. So there's a lot of, when we get into accreditation, downstream, the backup, all like these are things that, I'm looking at all kinds of things that we, in the middle of the night, that sit there and say like, oh, and how do we make sure that we have this individual that reports to budget and finance, but we need the cost center approver to go over here as opposed to up there reporting that. So these are the items that I need to be able to hear, as well as what we can share with. Try to be as transparent as we can as we work through this, because I know that has been. And so our goal is to be able to get that back on track so that we can. But please do not hesitate if there are things you're like, hey, we thought about this, or I don't want anything to be lost as we kind of walk through this. And I think there are a lot of things that we talked about today, as well as, other pieces I'm sure that you got.
One part that, because that just jogged my memory, something I had regarding with the implementation of this, if an employee had been hired, let's say April, they're still in that probationary period of time, up to 1 year, if I recall. Is there a plan for those individuals who are still in that area? Does this affect them differently, or?
I can't imagine that it would. I mean, so their roles and responsibilities would change. I don't see, to your point, extending probationary that extends as long as they're meeting what is expected before we kind of roll into that. But valid point.
Thank you.
As a staff senate, is there anything we can do to help?
Open with me, like what you guys need or what you hear that is being needed or wanted, is happy to be able to make myself example. So I appreciate the question. So to the point that you can champion it, we were not there yet, I'd love to be able to have a conversation, so that way that we can knock down some of the rhetoric that may be developed over time, or that, how do we quench individuals' concerns and those type of things, being able to work with that standard.
Just to add on, we have a little when, July, let's just say the rollout's gonna be. Then with all new hires prior to that, it just be as well, and then July 1 will start with the new process of how we hire. How they'll be placed. So right now, if you say, or if it was April. Continue on that process till July 1, and then when we do new hires.
So broad focuses. If after July when we open a position, we're going to be opening it for a specific need, which would be defined differently than it is today.
I take back that was my last question.
Good, please.
So with regards to that, so like we are hiring a whole, a whole slew of office associates at this point, and so,
You need to keep your business ready. And we've
Okay,
got 6 months, we're not, so if there is something that you question, we're happy to be able to walk through it with you, but our goal is not to get you in the way while we're doing this in regards to executing on what we need to be able to do.
and then just for you to keep in mind, with extension purposes, we will have office associates and maybe other staff members that are out in the counties that will not be able to, play a campus role.
Okay, completely, 100%. This is where we get into the question in regards to, they may still have to be both the HR and the finance side of
Right.
it. So the extensions on the outside of it are provide a unique perspective. But at the same point, though, is when you sit there and say, like, what can we take it to campus, central ag, if you will, to be able to make sure that they have more face time with their community, it may be beneficial. So, ooh. Good?
Any,
I don't think much of this affects much of my staff at all.
other,
Well, we always like to be able to figure out how we can create efficiency.
any questions on Zoom from anyone? Well, I thought this was very productive. I'd like to thank AVP Link for taking the time today to meet with us for to go over this, and I'm sure we'll be back with more questions down the road once we have some time to chew on it. So thank you very much for coming.
Of course. And last thing I'd like to pull out real quick is the EAP is launched with Minds and Associates, so from a mental health perspective, from a attorney perspective, from financial, all of us that will continue to be able to put out all communication like we were talking about, and some and as you know, over here the next couple of months, that they'll actually on campus, they're onboarding as well. So we can kind of get to some of the challenges that we're cited as well. Want to be able to make sure that those that accessibility is there, and we govern up that relationship again, which I think will.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think having small bits of communication going out